Attention shoppers, back-to-back blue light specials on aisle 57 and 58.
Welcome to Blue Light Special, the podcast for CPG brand marketers who want to lighten up their hustle in retail and real life. I'm Christine Wright.
And I'm Trevor Lewis. We're here to decode the mysteries of retail and give you some insider hacks to make your brand the talk of the shelf. Let's get into this week's episode. Welcome, and let's get into this week's episode where we explore how to master display quality standards with our guest, Quentin Vowles. He's in-store design displays, plant operations manager, and all-around production guru.
He's a good guy.
He oversees everything from prototyping and manufacturing, kitting, and fulfillment. And if you've ever wondered what it takes to get a retail display delivered on time and on budget, then you won't want to miss out what Quentin has to say later on in the
Oh, so first, let's get started with what's happening in our worlds. Trevor, what you got?
RFPs, RFPs,
Oh.
RFPs. It's not that they ever went away. It's all back.
Yeah.
But they're definitely coming. They're coming at a pretty, hot rate. And I don't think that there's going to be any slowing down. And
You've talked several episodes about companies scrutinizing budget, and I've talked about companies downsizing, and kind of people are wearing more hats and having to do more things. And I think RFPs come into play with both of those.
They definitely do. There's another challenge that drives the need for an RFP as well, and it's the lack of expertise on the buyer side.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that forces them to do is to create some level of standard. Hey, can you submit a request for information? And then can you submit an RFP with the objective of educating the buyers on what some of those suppliers' capabilities are, and then how do they, rank amongst each other when it comes to pricing. And because there's such a wide array of needs amongst, retail project management teams,
Mm-hmm.
You may have to create more than one RFP, right? Or what we're seeing now is they're looking to create an RFP because they have a desire of finding a single source.
Yes.
And so I think that's the biggest trend that we've seen recently is, hey, we don't really have time for managing 6-7 different vendors. We actually don't even know what those 6 and 7 vendors do. What are their core strengths? What are their capabilities? How do they rank amongst themselves in the marketplace? And I'm brand new to this position that I assumed last week. So I really have no idea what's happening.
Educate me.
And so the RFP process is a way of educating the team, and also keeps, other departments on the buyer side aware of what the capabilities are of the supplier, whether it's quality control teams, whether it's, sales teams, whether it's procurement teams, whether it's, the brand team. They all have a vested interest in understanding what that given supplier's capabilities are. And I think that, because of some of the other reasons we've already outlined, price, change just in, headcount and roles, we will continue to see a large uptick in RFPs.
Yeah, and it's not just the usual, hey, what are your capabilities and what's the best pricing you can give? And in our world, when you're talking large CPG brands, a lot of questions they're asking are things that Quentin's going to cover later in the episode. What are your quality control standards? What are your certifications? Because sometimes you can or can't handle that brand's product depending on the certifications you have. So it delves deeper into things more than just capabilities and price.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's why there's often so many different, departments that are representing the questions that they're trying to find answers to, which is, do you offer, lot tracking, or how do you deal with an issue, or, what is QC? But even higher than that, where's certification? Or do you have EPA? Are you FDA certified? Those are some of the ones that we frequently hear.
Yes.
But I think across the board in every industry, you're gonna see more and more RFPs. Again, if you're on our side, there's always an opportunity. We always say, like, hey, we should just create a template for the RFP and give that to everyone, because I think it would streamline so much of it.
It's a lot of work.
Because a lot of them put so much work into developing what they think that they want answers to.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is they miss so much because there's it's hard. And so it's how do you ask the right questions? And again, it always comes back to what we say, which is no one goes to school for this.
Yes.
So a lot of the questions are being driven based on their own expertise or issues that they've had before.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just put those in there. But RFPs, we're going to keep on having.
Yep, they definitely are.
It's time for the industries working side by side with retailers and brands on the daily. We are in the know when it comes to trends. And what is the trend you got your eye on?
A trend that I have been seeing with many, many projects lately are what I call project glorifiers or product glorifiers. And what that is, just to give an example, it's an acrylic case, for lack of a better term, whether it's open or enclosed for security, that highlights a specific product. I'm doing one right now for a shoe. It's going to highlight the specific shoe of the month for that retailer, for that brand. The intricacies of that are, hey, it needs to either hang on a slat wall or a pegged wall or sit on the counter. And for this one, they want to incorporate it into wherever apparel for that same brand is being displayed to tell a brand story for shoe and apparel. But specifically glorifying that product or that shoe. And the other ones I'm seeing a lot are for higher end products, higher price points that are being put out in mass retailers on pallet programs, where that product might not be live on the pallet. You have to take like a card to the off pallet display to a counter to actually get it, purchase it. But they want shoppers to be able to look at it and experience it. So it needs to be under an acrylic case that is locked and secured to the pallet. So again, it's a glorifier of whatever that product is on that pallet display.
Yep. I definitely have seen that as a trend. Sometimes it's because space is limited, and so how you don't have space for a floor display per se, and so how can you kind of create this aha moment in the shoes of the consumer, introducing to that product. We see a lot of it in the cannabis space, specifically, that because the way that cannabis regulations are is all of the actual product is typically kept behind in a secure way. So as you are a shopper in that, you can go in there and they have a bunch of what I call jewelry cases, very similar to if you're going to a jewelry store. And so there's all of these different brands that are trying to capture the shopper's attention, but they're not shoppable displays. They're all really product glorifiers, some level of features and benefits of the product. So sometimes there's a little fact tag that's near them as well. But it's definitely something that we keep seeing in the cannabis space, and a lot of that sector is because of how that environment is has to be established and ran. So maybe one of our lucky Jackie can throw some visuals up on the.
We have a lot of examples now.
And some examples for those of you that are maybe watching on YouTube. Those of you listening on the podcast, maybe you need to go watch maybe what they're talking about. Anything else that you're seeing on the apparel street?
The product glorifiers, that's probably my main one because I've had such a plethora of asks for those lately. I mean, like you said, we've always done them and we have experience with, it's got to be on slat wall or it's got to be pegged or it's got to be on counter. So we knew what we were doing. We had projects to reference, but I just see a big surge of it now. And I think mainly, like you alluded to with cannabis, it's more of a security thing for higher end electronics, your Beats headphones or something like that. You're not going to have out there live for consumers to just grab and take to the counter for security and theft purposes. But they need to be able to at least see it, look at it, and visually analyze it to make that purchase.
Yeah, it's slightly different than the some of the other interactive experiences that we see is like a lift and so not necessarily that full consumer experience that you're giving a potential shopper, but you're definitely putting it out there like, here's the product, so you can see it really well. You might not necessarily be able to touch it or pick it up, but I think you're still trying to figure out, how do we get this introduced to,
how can the consumer experience it
in a way that drive towards the path purchase on that. All right, today we'd like to welcome Quentin Vowles, Plant Operations Manager of In-Store Design Display, to the podcast. Quentin, my man, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Welcome, Q.
We're excited to have you on here, and we're gonna just kind of jump right in here. The first question that we're gonna kind of just leap with is, tell us about all the areas of display production that you oversee.
Yeah, so as plant operations manager, it's really my job to make sure that your part goes through the concepting stage, goes through engineering design, goes through fulfillment, manufacturing, and then on out into packaging. So a lot of that, as we kind of walk through the process here, you have the liaison with design department. So we're going to take those ideas from sales, the customer's ideas, and we're going to boil those down into a workable solution.
Something that can be manufactured for real.
Yes. Yeah. So my big thing is manufacturability, right?
Yes.
So we're going to make sure that it not only serves the function and looks pretty, but it can be produced on that mass scale. It's my responsibilities to make sure that you get the best sheet layouts that you can. We're making your product as cheap and efficiently as we can to give you guys the best costs that we can. So after it goes through the engineering, the design phase, then we're going into the manufacturing where we touch on those efficiencies and stuff like that. Making sure that we have the right processes in place to, whether it be for an acrylic design or something like that, where you CNC bend, glue, or on the corrugate side of things, where we're going through and assembling, taping those units together. Sometimes we're hot gluing, stuff like that. And then finally, the last stage is, how are we going to get that to you, right? So we're designing those pack outs, we're doing the ship tests, and we're shipping those in the most convenient way to make sure that they arrive safe to the customer.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, and again, walking on the production floor out there, I mean, you'll see so many different project types. You see, countertop to floor displays to IRC and print solutions. How in the heck do you manage across all of these different project types? How do you manage quality control?
Yeah, so a lot of it is we go through and we set up those initial quality procedures in the beginning, right? So we go through and we have a full quality management system that walks us through all of the documentation that's needed, all of the QC sign-offs for each individual job that we're doing. And then, if you're doing a part or a job for 20 units, that's a whole lot different than doing something for 2,000 units, right? So as that 2,000 piece job is coming off of the CNC, you have the checks and the sign-offs to make sure that the parts are being cut to the right size. As they move through bending and gluing operations, all of those individual steps have their own QC checklists and their own QC logs where we're calling out critical dimensions and stuff like that that's required to make all of those pieces fit together correctly. Whenever our raw materials are coming in, so you get into the corrugate world, we're going through and we're checking those die lines and stuff versus what's actually coming in, going through and measuring, making sure that all of the slices and the folds are in the right spot so that we can start putting it together. And then as we're packing those units out, we're going through and we have a team that's dedicated, and that's their whole job, is that final look at your product, make sure that it looks nice, and it's been packed correctly. It has all of the right products in it. That final QC check before we seal the box and it gets palletized, or FedEx, UPS labels thrown onto it, and it can go on out the door.
Amazing. Certainly. And then I know that, every single project we do by and large is custom. So kind of, as you mentioned, you got to kind of custom develop QC practices. And I've always enjoyed walking out there and seeing all the level of detail that goes into it. The most simplest display to the most complex, all has a very extensive, detailed QC process. Anything you've observed?
I just like seeing, especially on the larger projects, you don't really think about it, but they're setting up the lines specifically for that project. Once the project's done, the lines get torn down. The next project comes, it's a completely new custom line, depending on what you're manufacturing, what you're doing in fulfillment, and how it gets out the door. And mainly because, and this is something a lot of customers don't realize, we don't want to handle something twice. So Quentin's out there pre-planning and making sure everything is flowing efficiently one step after the next. So we're not having to crack boxes open and drop in a sign or rehandle something and put tape on. It's going down the line and doing that efficiently through the entire process. That's what impresses me.
Yeah, no, it's almost like a work of art out there.
Yes,
Seeing it all
yes,
come
it's definitely
together,
mastery.
Quinn, tell us when has a QC process worked well, and it's
Yeah, give us an example.
is there an example that comes top of mind for you?
So obviously, there's kind of two different paths that we go down. We have the acrylic side of things and the plastics that we work, and then we have the corrugate side of things. So whenever that really works for us at those plastic levels is whenever those pieces are being glued, right? So we come through, we make those check fixtures and stuff like that. So we just did some display cases, some jewelry cases that went out about a week ago. And those jewelry cases have 10 or 12 different check fixtures that go with it, just because it's so tedious and it's so easy to get some of those parts upside down. And you would never notice that until the very last step, where you're maybe riveting a door on or installing a lock. And then, oh my gosh, this lever doesn't match the slot that it's supposed to fit into. So there's tons of checks and stuff like that, I mean, they save your butt out here on a daily basis. And then kind of in the corrugate world, in the corrugate side of things, you have those die lines and stuff, right? Which we're kind of using as our gospel to go to. If it's not labeled on our die line or something like that, and it comes in different, to us it's wrong. Until somebody gives us that okay, that oh no, this changed per the customer or something like that, and we see that change order request and it's been signed off on and stuff like that. That stops us dead in the process. So until all of those lights are green, your process is really tight in how to get things out the door.
Quentin, give us an example of a more of a complex project. I know we worked on one in the feminine care for launch inside Walmart recently. I think maybe that one would be a good one just to kind of break down and highlight the different products that were used. We were launching, end caps specifically on this scenario. So would you be able just to kind of share with our audience a little bit more about that project?
Yeah, certainly. So that project came to us. The customer was needing basically 3 levels of end caps produced. We needed that high quality one that was going into very few select stores. You had the design that was made for the masses, and then you had the alternative budget option for that, and then as well as an in-line that they wanted as well that was going into the mass stores. So what we did on that was, after talking with the customer and stuff like that, and you get those budgets and stuff like that kind of, narrowed down, you go through, and some of these big permanent end caps, we tend to use materials like PVC or foam core structures, stuff like that. So what we ended up going with on that one was a big, huge display. It was one massive part. It was made out of 1-inch thick foam core that had styrene sheathing around it, and it had the mannequins and the dividers made out of PVC, stuff like that. Something that was very robust, and people could shop it a lot, and you're not going to damage it, you're not going to hurt it in any way. And then you get into that mid-tier option, which was basically all corrugate, and it closely resembles that one that had the mixed materials on it, stuff like that, but it was a lot more streamlined version. I believe that we made 1,000 of them or something like that.
Mhm.
And it was something that was designed to be mass produced. So your select store option, your high end version, went through a completely different process and had a lot higher QC restrictions to it than what that one that went through the masses did. And then once we got to that low budget option, it was a very simple design. There wasn't a whole bunch of parts to it. It was, for the most part, all the same materials. And then the inline version, which was basically an all acrylic version, had product pushers on it. In the beginning, it was originally supposed to be a huge lit display, so we were going to install lights in it, interchangeable graphics. So stuff like that, as that comes through and we're going through the design process, the PMs and stuff like that, we're sitting down and we're going through and highlighting all of those things with not only the customer, right? It's important that they understand what they're buying. But then on the flip side of that, it's also important that our engineering department and our design department knows what the customer wants, and they're including all of the features that they want for, this high-end display that's going into a lot of stores.
And because it was a product launch, a new product launch for Walmart, it had to be in stores by a specific date, which meant all of the manufacturing that you just spoke about had to happen by a specific date. There was no missing it. So you staffed way up to do that, didn't you?
Yeah, I think for that job, we had 50, 60 people in here to help out with that. I like to say there's nothing on our floor that's ever the same, whether it be a little fact tag or just a little header graphic that's going into a retailer in a pinch fold shipper or something like that. There's nothing on our floor that's the same. So our production process is made to be modular. You walk out here into our shop, everything's on wheels. Everything can be torn down and set up fast. We can go from that 10-person production line, and we can scale it up to have 5 production lines going with 10 on each line if we need to. So it's a growing process as you work through something like that.
Awesome. Well, and that was going to be my, part of my next question was just kind of understanding the facility needs. I know you just kind of, jumped into a little bit with just the flex space that we have and how that gets used. Is there any other, whether it's aha moments or thoughts when you think about just facility and the different requirements that are needed just to be able to facilitate everything that you're asked to do?
Yeah. So a lot of what we do, whether you have live products going into something or it's proxy units, stuff like that, we are expected to have a level of consistency as far as atmosphere goes in our warehouse, right? If it's too dry or something like that, whenever you're folding the corrugate, you start to crack it out.
Yep.
So, you don't want any big leaky roofs or anything like that. Your well-lit areas. Our facility here, we have the door locks and everything, so everybody that comes in, has key card badges and stuff like that. So we maintain a certain level of security. But whenever you get into some of those other product lines and stuff, these are expensive, sometimes highly complicated electrical units or something like that. And so we go through and we put those into secure storage where, limited access, control logs in and out, stuff like that. And then on the flip side of that, you have the company side of things, the regulations that have to be in place, whether that be your EPA, your FDA. Some places are ISO certified. So that's a big part in that too, is what are you certified to work on? And whenever you get those certifications, that's saying that we're the experts in this area.
Yeah, I know when we're always talking with new clients, because as we're kind of understanding what their potential needs are, there's often just subset of questions that we ask. And one of the questions we always get asked is about lot tracking. And I know that's something that you're continuously looking at and prioritizing for clients as well. So it's amazing how many different, things has to be going right just to be able to manage clients, from the QC or just how your facility is, set up, and, even surveillance, right? I mean, I don't even know how many cameras that we have going on 24 hours a day.
We've gone back and looked at camera footage
We have
several times for certain things.
climate control, but even the dock doors, the amount of dock doors that we have because of, daily inbound and outbound shipments. I know that's something that is, critical as well. So one last question is, what would you like a CPG brand manager to know about the display production process that they might not know?
So I would say that, it's a collaborative process, right? So whenever they come to us, we want them to give us the feedback on our design. We want them to be involved with us so that we can elevate their display to the best that it can be, whether that be different materials, sometimes mixed material displays. And then as we build through that process, it's all about, okay, here's this ideal design that you now have. Okay, we can get this in your budget if we're now manufacturing it this certain way. And this certain manufacturing process, might leave rounded corners in this, or it might need to be flamed acrylic in this section. So working through that, it's all about communication. I like to say that we can never be given too much information. I would rather have the book that I would have to flip through and stuff, whether that be your pack out and logistics side of things, where if we're going into a specific retailer that, that customer uses all the time or something, and they're used to doing it, send us the information, and, we'll handle that for you. There's no reason why we can't do that. Whatever standards there are, stuff like that, more communication,
the better.
Yeah.
And it's the same reason why we ask so many questions. It's because we need that information to do the best that we can do.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, my man, again, I appreciate you, coming on, sharing a little bit of your expertise as it relates to just managing the production floor and all of the ins and outs related to that. But you're not off the hot seat yet.
No.
I'm gonna transition it over here to Christine. She's gonna take you through our next segment. It's gonna get a little interesting.
Yeah. So let's get into the lightning round. Yes, to participate in. So are you ready, Quentin?
Let's do it.
What is one new brand you recently purchased and why?
So whenever I think about buying stuff, I'm a big tool guy. I have a lot of side hobbies that I'm working on. And so one big place, I love to shop is like that Harbor Freight. And
you've sent me to Harbor Freight for stuff before.
Absolutely. As long as you're taking care of your tools, they can never go bad on. But, I'm a big Milwaukee guy and stuff like that. But every now and then, you just need that tool that's not going to break the budget and stuff like that. So here recently, I've been going through and buying some of like the Bauer stuff from Harbor Freight. And just that little bit more ideal line of power tool and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yep. Okay, well, what's one thing you've bought on TikTok or Instagram or any social media? Because mine was on Facebook. I don't do TikTok or Instagram.
Yep. I'm not a huge person. I don't go out and buy a whole bunch of random stuff, the trendy stuff like that. So whenever I think about stuff that has influenced me on TikTok, Instagram, stuff like that, I'm a big food guy. And, so like you see those food trends and stuff like that that are going around on TikTok. And so just last night, I ended up trying that new Panda Express spicy chicken. So
and how was it?
It was delicious.
Okay, what is one piece of technology you can't live without?
At this day and age, I would have to say my phone. You know, it's always in your pocket. For us here in the shop, we've now started integrating Monday.com, and that's something that we're uploading shop drawings into and stuff like that. So whenever we have those QC issues out on the floor, you can pull up right there the engineering drawing on your phone. Hey, this is wrong. This is right, and that's been huge for us.
Okay, what's the worst career advice you've ever been given?
Well, that's a hard one. I've been given a lot of bad advice in my day. I don't know if it's necessarily bad advice or bad morale, however you want to look at it. But whenever I walk around and you hear somebody start telling you, "Well, that's not your job. Don't worry about it." That's a big pet peeve of mine, right? No, we're all here. Big red flag. Yep, we're all here to better ourselves and stuff like that. So, in my opinion, if you're not learning something new every day, it's not worth going.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Totally agree. I think there's one time when it's acceptable to start flipping over tables and everything. That's what someone says. That's not my job.
Yeah, it's not my job description. Yep. Where do you go to consume information to do your job better?
So a lot of what I know, I have a degree in manufacturing engineering, and that's all great and stuff. But a lot of everything else that I do, right? I didn't go to school to be a operations manager or anything.
Go to school for this.
Yep. and it's one of those things, on a daily basis. It's okay. Well, how do I do this in Excel, or how do I do this?
You are an Excel wizard. For the manufacturing guy, you are an Excel wizard.
Yeah, love looking at those spreadsheets. But YouTube is my go-to. If I don't know how to do something, YouTube's the place that I go to learn.
Trevor's kind of known for YouTube it. If we ask him a question, just YouTube it.
Google it, YouTube it. It's there. I promise you can figure it out.
Okay, last question. What advice would you give your 25-year-old self, although that wasn't very long ago?
Yeah, I'll really have to think back here those couple of years. It's kind of one of those things. Just trust the process, right?
That's a good one.
It's you have a vision, and you only know so much as you go into the day and stuff. So, you're expected to learn as the day goes on. You're expected to be smarter tomorrow than you were today. And so that's the only real advice that I would give myself is just trust the process.
Good advice.
Awesome. Well, again, this was great to have you on. I'm excited for our audience to be able to, listen to some of the different areas that you cover, as well as, kind of those next gen, production folks that are interested in that. I think it's always interesting for you to be able to share some of that for them, whether that's someone that's in high school or college and thinking about what the heck do I want to do when I grow up. I always just love watching what Quentin does back there and how he brings modern technology to, a
manufacturing process. Yeah.
So one of my stories before we let him go was just how he was leveraging, looking at how does AI, and I think they were trying to figure out, and Quentin, I'm going to let you kind of just jump in and tell a story a little bit, but it was around you trying to figure out how to, if it was the depth of the bit on the CNC, I'm not sure, but you did some programming and you was looking at, can AI inform us on how to better code this? Give us a little high-level version of what you did there, because I thought, like, oh my goodness, this is incredible how you was leveraging modern, tools like artificial intelligence to help solve a problem that I don't know that others would have went that path.
Yeah, so that specific time, we had, for whatever reason, our CNC machine didn't like the code that the program was spitting out. And, G code, for anybody that doesn't know, is basically just lines and lines and lines. It's just like regular computer program. It's all numbers, G20, T20, whatever. And as you work through that, unless you are fluent with that and working it every day, you don't know what all of those little moves are. And we had a bit that was coming out and doing some funky stuff and moving where we wasn't wanting it to go and stuff like that. And I ended up going into, I think I used Chat GPT for that one.
Of course you did.
And I told it, in this line of code, somewhere in here, my bit is raising up into the air and I don't want it to. And it was able to read that and go through it and tell me exactly where that was, deleted out that line, and went on about my day.
Chat GPT for manufacturing on a CNC machine. It's fantastic. Yep.
Love it. Well, we're going to let you off the hook. Thanks again, my man, for coming on.
Thanks, Quentin.
All right. Appreciate you guys for having me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Well, for our last segment, we want to give you a little glimpse into our own minds. We all have those moments where we reflect, learn, and remind ourselves of certain truths. For me, it's my memo to myself, and for Christine, it's her I am for the day. It's a chance for us to be a bit vulnerable, share thoughts, and maybe some of it will resonate with you. And this time,
I'm going first.
Christine, tell me about your I am for the day.
My I am for the day, and that comes from my group of accountability partners that I have. And every morning over coffee, we text each other and say, "What are you today?" And today, I am setting the example. That's what I am. Either personally or professionally, but most of it stems from just interactions with my kids lately. They're teens or adults. I don't have little ones anymore, but I've always, as a parent, been, I wish I could teach them this, or I wish they would learn that. And honestly, a parent telling a child something verbally, they do not listen. Someone else could tell them and it's gospel, but if mom or dad tells them, they're not going to listen. But they will pick it up by example. And if I remember that, like, I really wish my kid would learn better about spending money. Set the example, make sure they see it. Or there's a lot going on with Braxton baseball lately. Like a kid last night, they were leaving practice and they were all hooting and hollering for this one kid. And all of us moms were like, what is going on down there? Well, the kid got mad and he threw his helmet because he just got out of practice. And all the other boys were, let's go, trying to pump him up and everything. And so my example to him was, did you see how he handled that? It wasn't handled well. So let's remember that. And the next time you want to launch the helmet when you get out, let's not do that. So setting the example for him. Or at work, professionally, when you want your coworkers or someone to maybe learn something or do something a different way, it's up to you to set that example first.
Love it. And yeah, I mean, I know that you do a phenomenal job of
I try.
And it's not always easy. Right?
No, it's not easy.
I know that, when I wake up in the morning, most days I do not want to go to the gym. But I know that part of that, setting that example that you're talking.
Yeah, and for your kids, I do the same thing for exercise.
I do not want.
No, they hate conditioning. They hate it.
I need to watch. I need to make sure that I'm leading by. Great one. My memo to myself, today, as I was driving on my way in, is take the vacation.
That's another set the example moment.
Take the vacation. I was fortunate to have a couple of last weekend. Anyone, whether you're leading teams or not, I think, there's a lot of folks that just aren't taking enough time to recharge and me to be my best self for both my team here as well as at home.
Mm-hmm.
I need a break, and so I think it's so important. But amongst the leadership aspect, you just find yourself like, there's no way I can take it.
I'm not important. I need to do this. I need to do that.
Yeah. So
but you are the most important.
Take the vacation. Your team will figure out how to move.
It will survive. It will go on.
Every time. And so, yeah, that, to myself, take the vacation. And I did, and I'm better for it.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode. We're grateful to have you along for the ride as we lighten up your hustle through retail and real life.
Thanks for listening, and keep your questions and comments coming. We love tuning in to what you want to know about helping your brand stand out in store. Please like and share the podcast. We appreciate your help getting the word out about Blue Light Special. Finally, join us for next week's episode where we will dig into the inflation impact, the changing landscape of consumer spending.
Uh-oh.
This podcast is a production of In-Store Design Display. the go-to expert for guiding and elevating your in-store experience. Our wordsmith, Julie Edge, and mix master, Jackie Vera, make all of this possible. So a big thanks to them and the entire team at In-Store Design Display.
Stay tuned for our next episode on YouTube or wherever you consume podcasts. We'd love to hear from our listeners, so please drop us a line and tell us what you want to hear about retail and real life.